Ha! The jig is up, Doc Ock. Wait a minute, you're not Doc Ock. Looks like we've really got some competition. Welcome to 5 Points of Articulation, where I review action figures and then articulate 5 points to help you decide if you want to add that figure to your collection. The 5 points I discuss are packaging, presentation, posability, playability, and price. I'm Jason, and if you enjoy my content, please like, share, subscribe, do all the YouTube rigmarole. Today we're taking a look at the all-new DC Multiverse Injustice 2 Brainiac by McFarlane Toys. Starting off with the packaging, and it's our normal window box. Wonderful to finally see the name Brainiac on one. Looking at the side, this comes from Injustice 2, though honestly at this point I'm happy to be getting any Brainiac. UPC down here for those using apps like BrickSeek. Speaking of apps, you can scan this QR code for DC Universe Infinite, and then on the back we get some promotional artwork of Brainiac from the game. Some very, very creepy promotional art. For packaging, I'm giving Brainiac 1 whole point, mainly because I'm scared not to. Moving on to presentation, and Brainiac's a pretty big boy, clocking in at about 7.5 inches. It should go without saying that this is a 100% new sculpt, which, given all the reuse I've been looking at lately, is very refreshing. From the top, in Brainiac's skin is a muted green with some shadows around the eyes and a devious little smirk. Naturally, he has all of his lights up top. The lights have been punched in with a very bright fuchsia that really stands out, and even though there isn't a wash exactly, there is some dirtying of the silver. There's also a lot of black painted in there as well. It goes without saying that all the different panel lines are very impressive. The shoulder pauldrons are nice and soft so as not to interfere with articulation, and I appreciate the rib sculpted into the rotator cuff. The suit itself is heavily paneled and very chunky. In a way, it kind of reminds me a little bit of the movie version of Cyborg. Since this is mostly a robot suit, the diaper's integrated much better than usual. Flipping around, we see a lot more paneling. Focusing a moment on the shoulder blades, we can see ports for his tentacles. We'll be checking those out during playability. Moving on down, we can also see they continued the details with the joints, which is always nice. Looking at the legs, you can better appreciate what I was talking about with the modeling of the silver. His knee pads appear to be looking at you. The boots are really clunky. All the panel lines and the calves are really crisp though, and the armor does a pretty good job of hiding the ankle balls. On that subject, the wrist balls are pretty nicely hidden as well, though I do feel like the hands seem almost kind of small by comparison. The amount of sculpted and painted detail in this Brainiac is, dare I say, mind-blowing. As an adaptation of what we saw in the video game, this is a flawless victory, but even as just a regular Brainiac in general, this is more than worth the wait. For presentation, I'm giving Injustice 2 Brainiac 1 whole point. Moving on to posability, and there are some limitations, but also some pleasant surprises. As always, Brainiac's head's in a dumbbell joint. Because of the neck armor, he can't really look up, which is to be expected. Down, however, is no problem. He can also tilt his head in bafflement and look side to side. Moving down, I'm pleased to say he can raise his arm up over 90 degrees. The shoulder armor meets the forearm armor in a very interesting way. Again, we have forward and back with the rotator cuff. A little bit on the loose side if I'm being honest. Naturally, he also has bicep swivel, double jointed elbows with a very deep bend given the armor, and McFarlane wrist balls that can swivel, hinge up and down, or side to side. Moving in the middle, and he has a diaphragm joint and a dumbbell waist, and this one really surprises me. Brainiac can arch back this far, which is really good, but he can also hunch forward this far, which is really impressive for a DC Multiverse. You gotta be careful though, because this section really wants to come up against that one. As long as you push him forward though, there's no problem arcing him down. Brainiac also gets side to side and twist. Below the waist, and he has very crunchy McFarlane style hips. Using those hips, he can kick this high and split this wide, but no real twist this time around. He does, however, have double jointed knees. Not the deepest bend in the world, but that's because of the armor. Very deep bend on the toe articulation though, and McFarlane ankles that can swivel, hinge, and pivot. It is so great to see McFarlane improving on things like ab articulation. Hopefully improved thigh twisting is next on the list. Either way, as a character based off of a fighting game, I'm very pleased with the range in this figure. For posability, I'm giving this Brainiac 1 whole point. Moving on to playability, and Brainiac comes with a trading card and a figure stand. If you want to learn more about Brainiac, pause here. Additionally, Brainiac comes with what I can only describe as Dr. Octopus tentacles. Each one is a long, mechanical-looking hose. 2 of them have what look like Dr. Octopus clamps at the ends, and the other 2 have points. Those plug into the back ports we looked at during presentation, and yeah, what else would you call them but Dr. Octopus tentacles? This is the design from the game, so I'm not accusing McFarlane of ripping anybody off, and while I'm not opposed to the idea of Brainiac having robotic tentacles, I just wish they could have been implemented in a way that seemed less derivative of Dr. Octopus. Also, they're not bendy, but they can swivel in place. If many of you were wondering, nope, the Bendy Doc Ock tentacles will not plug in, though if you really wanted to, I guess you could superglue them. One thing I'm sure a lot of collectors would have liked is alternate hands, but if you're only going to give a figure one set of hands, an open hand and a fist is a really good way to go. But playability is more than just tentacles and alternate hands. It's also about how well your figure plays with others. Starting with some other Injustice 2 figures, and here we have the Flash, the very tall Green Arrow, one of several Injustice 2 Dr. Fates, fellow villain Gorilla Grodd, Batman, whose small stature is even more highlighted by how big Brainiac is, and Super Karen. Supergirl brings us to the Superman family. Here we have Jonathan Kent, Con-El Superboy, and Superboy Prime bringing us to some other villains. First up, we've got to have Lex Luthor in his battle armor, Atomic Skull also in Lex Luthor's battle armor, General Zod, and Bizarro. Bizarro brings us to Superman himself. First up is Action Comics 1000. Here we have Hush, and my new favorite, a combination of Hush and the Action Comics 1000 repaint that came with Atomic Skull. For a few other Men of Steel, and here's the DC Direct John Byrne version, DC Essentials, the NECA DC vs. Dark Horse 2-pack version, the original DC Multiverse Rebirth version with his wonky boots, the Liber Miho inspired Page Punchers version, and then for a live action comparison, and here we have Cavill. For a roll-to-scale comparison, and here's Pizza Spidey and the Spectacular Spider-Man, and as always, here he is with Stealth Iron Man. It's taken some time, but in terms of Superman villains, DC Multiverse has been better to us than any other toy line, even DC Universe Classics. The best part about this Brainiac is that he'll be right at home in either your comic book or video game shelf. For playability, I'm giving Brainiac 1 whole point. This leaves us with nothing left to discuss but the price. I pre-ordered my Brainiac from McFarlaneToyStore.com, but it is a wide release and should be available at stores pretty soon for between $20 to $23. Given how long we've been waiting for any Brainiac, picking up this figure is a no-brainer. For price, I'm giving Brainiac 1 whole point for a grand total of 5 out of 5. If you're interested in this figure, is it more for your Superman collection or more for Injustice 2? Sound off in the comments below and let me know who you hope they make next. And don't worry, I also have Injustice 2 Superman, but he's a conversation for another day. If you like this video, check out one of these. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back again real soon, but until then, play nice and have fun.